Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. Ali, you well?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Hope you are too. I am coming at you live, as it were, from Tokyo, the other side of the world, which is it's actually gone a little bit cloudy now. It was very, very warm earlier, but we're late afternoon, almost evening now. Sunsets here a lot earlier than I was expecting, actually. A good 3 hours or so earlier than the UK. Just a bit of trivia for you. Although you know this because you came here a few months back. But no, all very interesting so far. All the Tottenham stuff really kind of kicks off tomorrow in terms of access to various things and press conferences and interviews, and obviously the game on Saturday. But no, very cool place so far. Well, cool in terms of the people, hot in terms of the weather.
Yes, it's set to be a busy few days for Spurs in Tokyo. Vissel Kobe first up on Saturday, but before we speak about Spurs in Japan, it looks like Spurs are signing yet another youngster, and it is Yang Min-hyuk, a young South Korean winger, plays in the K-League for Gangwon FC. Had a decent season so far. He scored 7 goals, 3 assists in 24 appearances, and it's yet another young player with Spurs building for the future.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like, look, we're well aware that Tottenham need transfers now for the present, and senior players. We absolutely understand that, of course, but they are also building this kind of young team of incredible talent. Really, when you look at some of them that they've, or many of them that they've brought in for the future, and that's kind of you're going to whisper it quietly, but beyond the Postecoglou era as well. And it's funny, actually. I heard about Yang. I think it was about a week ago. Someone mentioned the name, and I didn't really dig into it too much because there was so many links at the time, and obviously more for me. I should have really looked into it more. Because yeah, it looks like it's going to get done. It's not one for now in any sense, really, because it looks like it's going to be one that goes through in January. A little bit like Bergval, it was all agreed, but for him to come in obviously July. But with Yang, we're trying to work out the kind of the way to say this properly. It is, as I'm told by the Korean legendary journalist Sungmo Lee. It is Yang Min-hyuk. That's the way you say it around, like Sonny, rather than Heung-min Son. It's Son Heung-min. So yeah, that's the way that it's said in Korea. So we'll go with the Korean way. Yeah, so he'll be heading over in January, which is a couple of months after the K-League season ends. And as you say, and it's his maiden season in the K-League, and he's made quite a splash. 10 goal involvements in 24 matches. Got an assist on his debut, a goal on his second game. I think he became the youngest player to score a goal in the K-League. I think it was maybe since 2013. I think I saw the stat. Talking of Sungmo, obviously my knowledge of K-League and the footballers there is not the best. Let's to put it mildly. So got in touch with Sungmo to get his thoughts on Yang, and sounds like a potential star, which is obviously why Spurs are going for him. And we mustn't forget, Spurs are really kind of data researching every signing now. There's a real heavy data influence in everything and every player they're bringing in. So they obviously believe that there's something about this kid. And talking to Sungmo, I'm just going to read you the messages off. It's probably easier. Best young player in the K-League right now, with a record of winning the Young Player of the Month in the K-League 3 months in a row, which is the first time that's ever been done in the K-League. He's a very skillful player with a great dribbling skill as well, but also has great finishing skills by himself. And those two reasons, the ability to dribble and the ability to finish off the goals himself, which is why many Korean fans are expecting he could follow Son's footsteps in the future, which obviously he's very much doing so far in the terms of as long as this transfer does get wrapped up. So yeah, it's when you look at it purely, if you're just looking at the stats, that would seem to back that up, because he spent the first half of the season playing on the left wing, and since what was it, about May, he's been playing on the right, and he's actually scored more goals on the right. I think he got more assists on the left, more goals on the right. So the ability to play on either wing, the bit of pace, ability to dribble, ability to finish. It does sound, of course, a lot like Sonny, and who's been a huge success at Tottenham over the years. We know that. And you would have thought, I'm sure we'll get the chance to ask him. I think he's got a press conference in Seoul on, I think it's Tuesday next week. Hopefully the deal will have been done by then and we can get the chance to ask Sonny about it. But I would imagine that he's had some kind of say, given some kind of backing to the move. As a South Korea, national captain, although Yang hasn't played yet for the senior side, you would think he'll be aware of him. He's, one of the best young players, if not the best young player, according to Sungmo, in the league there. And there's a chance that he could actually play against Tottenham next week as well, because he is in that squad for Team K League. So that would be great for us, all getting to kind of see, and good for him, I guess, in a way of, it's like a bit of an early audition for him in front of the Tottenham fans, the Tottenham manager, and also the players. But yeah, they're putting together a very kind of core of talented young players right now, aren't they, Spurs?
Yeah, very much so. You can see that from the transfer business they've done this summer with Lucas Bergvall joining up with the squad, Archie Gray moving from Leeds, and then you've got the likes of Mikey Moore, Jamie Donnelly, Will Lancashire, Tyrese Hall, Alfie Devine on the tour as well. So things do look quite promising for Spurs at the moment, because you probably go back a few years in recent seasons, not that many have made the step up from the academy to the first team. And I mean, that's what all Spurs fans want, and that's what the club have been doing as well, bringing in that talent from around the world. Luka Vuskovic being one of them, coming from Hajduk Split. So yeah, hopefully it does lead to a bright future. I think I'm like you. I don't really know much about Yang, but from what you've been saying, what Sungmo said, sounds really promising. Bit like Ange as well, winning 3 successive awards in his debut season as well, just like Ange did with the Manager of the Month awards. But I think 18-year-old can play off both wings, got a good record in front of goal, and given his age, he's only going to progress and get better, and he will only get better from playing with better quality players once he is through the door at Tottenham. So it does sound very promising. And if he's at Spurs from January, I mean, the queues outside the training ground on the Friday before press conferences are mad anyway, when all the South Korean fans are there for Son. I mean, with 2 players shortly on board, the queues are going to be absolutely insane. And I think, it sounds like another really smart bit of business for the club, and hopefully we'll get to see a glimpse of him in this Team K League game.
Yeah, and I think, of course, there's going to be a potential commercial side to it. Of course there is. When Spurs look at any player or manager from another country, that is also... I think ultimately it's about talent, because they're going to look daft if the player's not good enough to play for them. But also there's probably this like 1% of it, let's hope it's 1% with players that they buy, where they'll also look at that's another market to expand their fan base. And I'm sure we'll see that in, let's say, Sweden with Kulusevski and Bergvall right now. We've certainly seen it in Australia, a little boost with Postecoglou coming in. And I would imagine there's a certain element as well of potentially, I don't want to call him a successor, because Sonny's still got, hopefully a fair few years to keep playing and still scoring as many goals as he's scoring. But at 18, Sonny's 32, he's approaching half of his age. And so there is a kind of a certain element of, potentially being maybe his successor, not only at Tottenham, but maybe in Korean football, in the Korean national team as well. But yeah, we'll see. There's a long way to go, of course, absolute long way to go. It's a really interesting deal because, we speak about their transfers and Johan Lang, the data-led research, but we also mustn't forget that Postecoglou has been a kind of a big pusher of signing players from Asia as well. At every club he's been at, he's very keen to kind of not close off any market, and knowing how much quality there is in different markets that maybe aren't, for some reason or another, not used as heavily across Europe as they really should be, because there's so much talent out there. And so, I think this is great. I do think it's it's a bit weird in that, and it shows you kind of maybe too much of looking towards the future, that the 3 permanent players that Spurs will have, will say arriving, although technically Lucas Bergvall was signed before, the 3 18-year-olds, which is mad. Obviously, Timo Werner's a bit older, but a loan move. Yeah, it's very much looking towards the future. I did a piece this morning where I said about the quotes that Ange said to me a few months back when we were talking about the academy, and how he was saying we're not, the academy hasn't got that production line yet, so we're having to buy players for the future. And this is another one of those. And they are, you reeled off a few of the names earlier, but it's just crazy. I mean, you got Archie Gray, Bergvall, Vuskovic, who else have we got here? Obviously, he's taken on Udogie and Sarr when he came in. They were teenagers when they signed, and they've both been so good they got new deals as well. Just loads. Like, you forget about players like Ashley Phillips that came in as well last summer too. I'd written a list, so I wanted to go through them all because there were just so many. Obviously, yeah, Radu Dragusin was only 21 when they signed him. Van der Ven was 22 when they signed him as well. Brennan Johnson, we forget, is only 22 when he signed as well for 50 million. Decky Kulusevski was only 21 when he signed too. I think we can clearly see that there's a profile that Tottenham go for more often than not, and that is younger players that are for the now and for the future as well. And that's, like you say, not even to mention the academy kids that are coming through, because there are some. I know Postecoglou downplayed it a bit, but the likes of Mikey Moore, Jamie Donnelly. Oh, by the way, someone keeps telling us off. We're saying Jamie Donnelly. That's what we're saying. Someone keeps telling us off every podcast that we're trying to say Donnelly. We're not. It's just that if you say Jamie Donnelly quickly, it sounds like Donnelly. But I can promise you, we know his name is Jamie Donnelly. It just sounds like we're not saying that. Every time we do one of these, it's the same person comments underneath. So apologies, but we are trying to say it properly. But yeah, you've got others. You've got Alfie Dorrington, George Abbott, Alfie Devine. There are so many kind of young players that potentially, I mean, you could go even further down than that. They just signed George Feeney this summer from Glentoran, the 16-year-old striker. Janai Byfield, only 16. Everyone raves about him as a young centre-back in the academy. And he played in the behind closed doors games against Cambridge as well. There are so many young players at the moment. And it always takes me back to that article I did a couple of weeks ago about the team in 2030 and all that. And look, we don't know. We don't know how many of them are going to go on to be the superstars we hope they can be. But certainly at Tottenham, there's this real young core coming through. And don't get me wrong, I understand absolutely. I still think they need senior players to come in this summer. That will happen. It's not going to be something that isn't going to happen. But I did feel like there was always going to be a focus on continuing to bolster their youth talent as well this summer. And it looks to be the way it's going.
Yeah, so obviously you're in Japan at the moment for the pre-season tour of Japan and South Korea. There's one game on the agenda in Tokyo, and that's against Vissel Kobe on Saturday. But Spurs actually are going to have a behind closed door game coming up because, I mean, they've taken a huge squad with them for the summer tour, 31 players in total. Nice blend of youth and experience, but with 31 players there, there's not always going to be a decent amount of playing time. But hopefully with this extra friendly, a behind closed door one on the agenda, a few of those maybe on the periphery of the first team will get a good amount of minutes under the belt.
Yeah, I think by the time this podcast goes out there, it will probably have kicked off. I think it was meant to be this kind of early evening. I think it actually might have kicked off just not too long ago, actually. It's kind of being termed as an under-21s game. Although I think there'll be some slightly older players from the group that aren't maybe going to start the game against Vissel Kobe. So I think maybe Jed Spence, potentially Oliver Skip. Now that there's a few more kind of central defenders able to play at the back there. So yeah, it is behind closed doors, no fans, only like select people getting to see it. So information is going to be a little bit like the Cambridge United game. It's going to take a little while to come out and get hold of, and it's going to take a little while to corroborate a lot of that because certain people remember things in different ways or hear things in different ways as well. So we'll kind of see what we can pick out of it to probably be one maybe for the next podcast to talk about as well, in tandem with the main game. But like you say, it's a huge squad, 31 players. If you just stick to the current friendly schedule, you're going to have a load of players that are not going to be sharp enough and fit enough come the start of the season. And we've seen before, you can get an injury on the eve of the season, and someone that's meant to be on your bench or not even playing suddenly comes into a much bigger role, and they need to be sharp and ready. So it makes absolute sense. The temperature out there, I'm just trying to look at what they'll be playing in. Oof. Even at past 5 o'clock in the evening, it's 32 degrees Celsius out there. So it's going to be a warm one for them. The game on Saturday is 7 o'clock Tokyo time. So might be ever so slightly cool, although last night it was still about 30 when I went out for dinner. So yeah, it makes sense. Not sure who the opposition is. I'm presuming it will be local opposition. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an under 21s team from Vissel Kobe. I don't know. We don't know who the opposition is at this stage. We just know it's something to get these players extra minutes. But yeah, it's a clever idea, because then I think when you get to Seoul next week, because of the proximity of the two games, one on Wednesday, one on Saturday, you're probably going to blend those teams slightly. Whereas I think this Saturday, you can probably go into it and give maybe a stronger starting 11, 60 minutes or so. But I think on Wednesday, Saturday, maybe you might see a couple of those switched out and changed up, and someone starts the one game and someone starts the other. So you'll be able to give a bit more minutes. But yeah, this leg of the tour, I think this is quite a wise decision. And yeah, a lot of young players that getting their chance in front of the coach and and the staff.
In terms of the 31-man squad that Andrew's taken with him to Japan and South Korea, I don't think there was any real shocks in there. I think probably we expected a few players to be left out. Brian Hill and Sergio Reguilon, two of them, to explore moves away, other opportunities. I think Brian's been linked with a move to Girona in Spain, and that'd be a good move for him because they're playing Champions League football next season. And I'm sure there'll be some interest in Reguilon after a strong season with Brentford. But other than those two, there was Fraser Forster left out as he recovers from injury. That seems to have been quite a long one with Fraser, because that was mid-February when he fractured his foot. So we're 5 months on from that now. And then the other ones who won't be on the tour, as expected, it's Christian Romero, Rodrigo Bentancur, and Mickey van der Ven following their participation at either the Copa America or the Euros this summer. And then I think Radu Dragusin, he's joining up in Korea.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's as I said earlier, nice blend of youth and experience, and good opportunity there as well for someone like Will Lancashire, who maybe a few weeks ago you might have said maybe not make the tour, but with that goal and impressive performance against Hearts, he's on the plane and a chance to show Ange and the rest of the first team what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what these tours are all about, really. Fitness, and also a chance for players to step up and impress. And we spoke about it in the last pod, Jed Spence. It's players like that as well that maybe were slightly out in the cold have suddenly put themselves back into at least the conversation, if not the shop window. Yeah, it is good for these young players. Talking of the other extreme, actually, I was sat working in a well-known franchise coffee shop the other day, and I saw the exact opposite of a young player. James Milner walked in, which is very like, and I think we both did a bit of a double take look at each other. He probably wasn't expecting kind of this random kind of Englishman sat in the corner working away on his laptop. To be fair, it wasn't exactly inconspicuous. He was wearing his Brighton training wear, so he came in with Jason Steele, the goalkeeper, and it was one of those where I think presumably because of Mitoma, there's a lot of interest in Brighton among the kind of Japanese football fans, and they all knew who James Milner was. You can see Jason Steele, maybe not so much. Maybe just a couple of people went over and kind of took a selfie because he was in his Brighton training wear. But yeah, James Milner was like stopping as soon as he got his coffee that he got and walked out. He was having to stop every couple of yards to essentially sign something or do another photo. And but yeah, no, just to kind of show that there are other clubs out here as well. Brighton, I think they played last night in a game because I certainly saw a lot of Brighton shirts kind of coming back on the underground as well. But yeah, that just made me think because he's 38 now, James Milner. It's incredible, and he's won everything, hasn't he? He really has. What a remarkable career for someone that's kind of people take the mickey out sometimes like being boring and all these sort of stuff. You know, I'm sure most footballers would want to swap their career for that of James Milner. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, sorry, it's a little kind of divergence there just because it popped back into my head. Yeah, the young players they've all got a chance. Will Lancashire had two starts now as kind of starts in quote marks in second halves, and he'll get more minutes in the games ahead. And it's just about putting yourself out there in training, especially that's where Postecoglou makes loads of his decisions, as most managers do, based on how they're doing in training. If you impress, as he has been or had been certainly over the likes of Valise and Scarlett, then he's going to get his chance. And if he goes out there today and scores in this friendly that's taking place right now, then he's putting himself in a great frame. Then maybe on Saturday to come on later in the game and be like one of the first picks. Because I'd imagine if you play an hour tonight, 2 days time, you can probably come on for 15, 20 minutes, a little bit more, can't you, at the end of the game on Saturday. So yeah, there's a lot of players. I'm intrigued to see how many players now revert to their normal positions. We've seen a lot of Archie Gray at centre-back. Will he continue at centre-back? We've seen Jamie Donnelly playing at left-back. Will we see him get back into midfield? Skippy as well. Will he get back into his midfield role? Yeah, there's loads of potential just people going back to their natural positions, I guess, over the coming days.
Yeah, very much so. Before we speak a bit more about Spurs in Japan and what you're going to be doing over the next few days, it's that time, of course, to speak about our sponsors, NordVPN. And I know you've been all over the world using Nord before. I'm sure it's come in very handy for you so far in Japan.
I have used it already, actually, to watch one of my shows from back home. It was, what was that? It was at the airport, a connecting airport. Yes. So, yeah, again, we've said this a million times because it's true. I wouldn't kind of promote it if it wasn't something I use myself and believe in. And that's because NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world. It means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. What I haven't done yet is use their new feature, which I really will have to use. And it makes a lot of sense, quite frankly. It's called Saily. It's a brand new eSIM from the creators of NordVPN. And an eSIM, if you're not aware of it, provides an internet connection wherever you travel. It saves you money on roaming fees and stops you having to use dodgy public Wi-Fi, things like that. As a man yourself that I know likes to save some money and never uses mobile internet abroad if you can, there you go. It's going to be perfect for you. Guesty, whenever he goes abroad, you have to wait until he's in a Wi-Fi hotspot before he'll reply to you about anything because he refuses to use
not paying roaming fees.
No Absolutely. Chance. Well, there you go. Saily will stop you having to do that. You'll be able to be in contact with the world. Although, to be honest, I'm sure when you're abroad, you want to probably be out of contact, especially from people like me, and just see the part of the world you're in. But it does help those who want to have an internet connection when they're out and about. And if you go to nordvpn.com/gold guest, not only does our link give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, but you also receive a Saily data voucher. And also, on top of that, there's no risks because you get Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you missed that link that I just gave you, it's in the podcast episode description box.
So Tottenham in Japan, only here in Tokyo for a few days, but set to be a very busy few days, especially for you. A game, training sessions, press conferences, speaking to players as well. What can Tottenham fans expect of the next few days?
Yeah, pre-season chaos from a media sense. There's so much to cover in such quick. It's kind of been quite peaceful these first couple of days because it's just been gearing up, and then from tomorrow onwards it all goes crazy. So we'll have a lot of interviews. I think tomorrow we've got. Currently, this is kind of subject to change, but tomorrow I think we're speaking to Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, and Dejan Kulusevski. So there's 3 really kind of interesting, very different interviews there to be had because 2 new arrivals. One who I want to ask maybe Decky about positions and where he's kind of looking to play next season because I do wonder whether we're going to see more of him as a deeper midfielder than a winger. Then we've got Postecoglou's press conference at the stadium, which I think, again, this is all subject to change, but I think it could be Timo Werner. So again, another new signing of sorts to talk to, and of course Postecoglou to get his latest on transfers and Yang as well. Whether that will be done in time for us to be able to ask him about Yang Min-hyuk, hopefully, but otherwise we'll have to maybe save that for Sonny in Seoul, which would make sense. Who else we got? We've got this is just the next couple of days. Ozzy Ardiles and Ledley King are out here as ambassadors as well. So we've potentially got them to talk to, I think maybe Saturday morning ahead of the game. And then, of course, the game comes up. And then in Seoul, there's loads of various interview opportunities come up as well. Because what Spurs like to do is they like to kind of do community events. They kind of divide up the squad. So certain players will go off and do sponsors commitments and stuff and do events for people that I guess are putting money into the club as part of this tour. And then the other half will do community events and bits and pieces, which are often, I must admit, I really like that aspect of it as well. Half of my brain is thinking about the questions I'm about to ask, but the other half is kind of looking at what the players are doing and just seeing the kind of the joy that the people that they're meeting get out of these things as well. And just the little kind of maybe take for granted what meeting these people that they've only kind of seen on TV can do for them. I think I think tomorrow maybe is some of the players are doing things with children at a hospice as well. So obviously that's going to have there's going to be a lot to that, and hopefully leaves a really positive impact as much as you can, in situations like that. And and then open training is going to be fascinating as well. Been very fortunate to go to various open training events around the world and always see the passion and the fervour of the foreign fans who support Spurs, and this will be the first time seeing how the kind of Japanese fans turn out and how many of them come along, and always looking for the chants. That's what I always do. I always want to listen because I love that you can go anywhere in the world and hear the chants that you and I hear at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium like every other week or so, and you hear them kind of rolling out. It's going to be a busy few days, and definitely keep an eye on football.london because we're going to have an absolute load of interviews going on there and press conference tomorrow as well. That is going to be a fascinating, I think, for a few different topics and seeing where they're at with deals and, like we say, new transfers. I think for the first team and for the now have to happen really within the next week or two. Otherwise, you're starting to just get to that scenario where they're coming in right before the season and not everyone's going to be a Mickey van der Ven. They're not going to be able to throw them straight into the days before the first lineup. And it's what Postecoglou wanted as well. So exciting and interesting couple of days ahead.
Yeah, there's been a couple of other bits of news at Spurs this week. First up, there's been a couple of squad number changes. Mentioned those. Guillermo Vicario is now Tottenham's new number 1, taking on the number from Hugo Lloris, and that's freed up Vicario's previous number 13 shirt, and Destiny Doggy's taking that on. Doggy's actually won that previously when he was at Verona, Udinese as well. He's won it for Italy under 21s, and I think he probably would have taken that number last season if Vicario didn't, get in there first. So I think it's one he's happy about. He was actually on his Instagram stories thanking Vicario for, letting him have 13. And think I'd seen Vicario previously had said 13 was his favourite number, and he wouldn't let it go. But
He said it was his lucky number, which is what worries me
really,
slightly. Yeah.
But with Lloris going, number one being, a big number in the game of football, I think you probably saw it as an opportunity you couldn't really turn down, especially when, Hugo Lloris has won it so well since his move to the club from Lyon in 2012. So those were a couple of squad number changes. We've also seen Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg exit the club this week. He's gone to Marseille. He's on loan initially, but with an obligation to buy for the French side in the deal, which could eventually be worth 20 million euros, what's about 16.8 million pounds. Bit of a surprise one that with Hojbjerg and Marseille, because there was never any whispers about Marseille really up until a few days before his move was officially completed. That it was linked with Napoli, Atletico Madrid. Then there was talk of move to maybe Turkey this summer. And I think everyone probably expected him to go to a club where he'd be playing Champions League football. And he's gone to a club in Marseille who aren't actually playing in Europe at all next season. So I think they finished 8th in league earned. But, Marseille usually are European regulars. And you think last season was maybe just a blip, and Hojbjerg with Roberto De Zerbi now at the helm, they'll be, determined to get Marseille back up the Ligue 1 table and back in Europe once again. So, bit of a surprise one. Maybe the lifestyle as well played a choice in it. Moved to the south of France. Not bad at all. Not a bad place to live.
Yeah, it's certainly worse places you could live. Hojbjerg's mother's French as well, so maybe there is that kind of French connection, if you'll pardon the pun. That's one for the movie types out there. You haven't seen that one, I presume, have you? The French connection?
No.
That's fine. We won't go into that. But yeah, I'd imagine he's probably fluent in French as well. He's a very clever chap, isn't he? I think he knows a number of languages. So yeah, maybe there's a little bit more to it from that side of things as well. But yeah, I agree. It wasn't what I was expecting, and I think a few people around him were expecting a Champions League club as well. But sometimes, if you hear a project that you like, that can change your mind, and it can give you a little bit of a kind of inspiration. And, maybe if your career's hit a little bit of a stumbling block, which it has to a degree. I still think he contributed a lot last season. Sad to see him go. In terms of, I do feel like whatever some people felt about him, I did feel he contributed a lot to Spurs over those years. He always gave his all, 100%. Little question for you. Were you a little bit surprised by the goodbye? It quite almost pretty much was goodbye. Thank you. There was, unless I've missed it while I've been out here, there wasn't any long goodbye message, was there?
From Hojbjerg to the club.
Yeah.
No, it was just like goodbye, thank you, Tottenham. Then a picture of him doing his celebration where he's like saluting the fans. Short and sweet. I mean, some players, don't always go for the long-winded messages. But
true.
Yeah, but Spurs put out a nice video of him. I think it was about a minute and a half of him in action, and yeah, he's been a really good servant of the 4 seasons he's been at the club. And one thing you can't knock him for is his availability. Even last season when he wasn't in the team, he'd still played 36 of 38 Premier League games, and I think first season at the club he played every single minute in the Premier League. He's been a really good player for Spurs over the past few years. Value for money as well when he joined from Southampton, with Kyle Walker-Peters going in the opposite direction. His leadership, that experience in the middle of the park, the nous to help teams get over the line. I think that will be missed, and probably he's going to need to be replaced, because I think he has been a key figure in the middle of the park over the few years. I know he's someone who's maybe some fans haven't really taken to think, oh, maybe we could upgrade that position. But no, I think he's done well for Spurs in his time in the club. Maybe deserves a little bit more respect, maybe.
No, I agree with you. Absolutely. I think sometimes I think some fans just want a team of stars. They want a team of like, for the you know, without a better phrase to use, like sexy footballers, ones that can do the most incredible skills all the time with the ball. And we know that that's not what teams are built on. Even the best teams aren't built on that. You need kind of workhorses, reliable players, and even that's kind of doing down Hojbjerg. If anything, for me, he had sometimes incredible talent in terms of creativity with his passing and picking out runs to score goals. But maybe his issue was he just didn't do it consistently enough. Whereas the other side of his game, the work rate, the tackling, and all of that was there. Maybe the ability that he did have on the ball, maybe he didn't trust himself, or maybe it just was inconsistent. I don't know. But I still remember little things like a chip through to Kane for a goal that was beautiful away from home. The opposition's completely going in my head. Was it maybe Leeds potentially? I'm trying to remember, but there was so many moments like that where he came up with kind of big moments. And of course, against Marseille, the finish for that goal, I think people underestimate how knackered he must have been in the late stages of that game to not only get up there and score that, but also the quality of the finish was brilliant. And on that video, when you're looking back at the various kind of big moments he'd had, all of the finishes are pretty much really good finishes. They're really placed, clever finishes. So, yeah, I don't think anyone hopefully kind of wishes anything other than well to him and what comes next for him. He's actually made Spurs a profit if you're going to look at it from the business side of things. If he goes for 16.8 at the end of it all, his package originally was 15 all in, wasn't it? I think if you're including Kyle Walker-Peters. I think it wasn't it something like he was 3 million of the deal and Kyle Walker-Peters was 12 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, not that it really makes much of a difference profit-wise, but the other interesting aspect to it all now is that it's another player that's headed out of the club, a senior player, part of the previous leadership group before Postecoglou came in, one of the higher earners at the club as well. So it's very much a new Tottenham in every sense, in that those leaders are very different leaders now in the group. In terms of transfers, they've really cleared the decks for Postecoglou, probably more than any previous manager. When you look at the amount of players that have headed out the door in the last, 12 months or so, just over, it's been remarkable, really. And not to see them as assets or things on a balance sheet, but if you are taking Lloris, Hojbjerg, Dyer, Perisic, players like that, Tongi as well off your wage bill, that must be freeing up millions each month, even each week, that should really be going elsewhere onto other players, and hopefully that's to come, and that's the plan. But it's you certainly can't argue about the fact that the club are trying to change this squad into something that Postecoglou wants. It's very much a new beast, as it were, from the squads that we've seen over many years.
Yeah, just on Hojbjerg, remember that pass to Serge Aurier at Manchester United in that big win. That was such a good pass as well.
That was a brilliant one.
Yeah, he did come up with some big moments for Spurs. Before we head off, we'll quickly discuss Tottenham's 2-0 win at QPR last weekend. You were at Loftus Road, weren't you, Ali, to watch them, I believe, a first-time visit to West London?
It was.
QPR's ground.
It was, although I kept calling it Loftus Park afterwards for some unknown reason, even though I'm well aware it's called Loftus Road. It feels like a lifetime ago now because of all the travelling since. It's probably the most interesting thing, I guess, from that we can kind of take and use as part of the update on the tour as well, is that we had that scary moment 26 minutes in when Lucas Bergvall, or 25 minutes in when Lucas Bergvall went down and had to come off, clearly really frustrated as well. He had like his shirt collar between his teeth. You could see how frustrated he was. Looked like a muscle injury. Thankfully, not only did Postecoglou say in the press, not in his press conference, he didn't do one for that one, in his club interview straight after, that he didn't feel it was anything significant. I was told a couple of hours later that it was likely just something that needed 2 or 3 days rest. It wasn't anything bad. And lo and behold, there he was in training out here in Tokyo on, when was the first day? Tuesday. He was already back in training. So just those couple of days, Sunday and Monday was all he needed. Obviously flying out on the Monday, so he would have had a bit of a rest. I tell you, Postecoglou didn't give them a lot of time to rest. They were training on Monday morning, got straight on the plane, came to Tokyo. They were given that evening off because they'd done the travelling, and then they were up very bright and early, I think, on the Tuesday morning to get straight back into a double session. So yeah, Bergwall has been back in training. Interesting to see how much game time they give him on Saturday, or whether he's involved. I'd imagine he probably wouldn't be involved in this behind closed doors game that's going on at the moment. And then maybe we'll see by the time Saturday comes around whether he's they're how do I put it, confident enough that he could start again, or whether they don't want to risk it because, you know, there's a suggestion it might have been a hamstring injury. We're not 100% on that, or not a hamstring, but a tight hamstring. If it is that, then yeah, the experience that Postecoglou and all of us had, and the many hamstring injuries that happened at Spurs, you don't want to risk that in any shape or form, especially for someone that up to that point against QPR was probably the best player on the pitch. He was remarkably good, and I love the fact that I think some of the early lessons have been quickly taken from the game at Hearts and the behind closed doors against Cambridge and training. He was very quick at recycling the ball. You know, there was no kind of dallying on it, no hesitancy. Immediately, as soon as he got it, he would either look to dribble or he would look to pass it on, rather than looking and weighing up his options. And that creates trust from the senior players as well. All of the players are really kind of around him and giving him the ball as much as possible. They trusted him in very tight spots when he had it. Basuma, before the game, came up to him just before kickoff and had a little chat with him. And he was doing this kind of thing with his fingers as if to kind of say, if I go forward, you back me up and I'll be there to have your back if you want to race forward, and I'll fill into the position behind. And that was very much the case. Every time Basuma raided forward, so Bergwall was back there as the one taking the ball off the defence, and he did it very, very well. Yeah, I must admit, I kind of felt like he would take a little bit longer than Archie Gray to adapt. But people over in Sweden, when I went there, were telling me that he wouldn't need a lot of time. I think they said at the most 6 months. But actually, you can see little signs of adaptation already. I felt like against Hearts, he had a shaky first 10 minutes in that second half. From that point onwards, absolutely got control of it and was really good. And then that just kind of carried into the QPR game, where I felt they didn't know what to do with him, QPR. He was just running and dictating the tempo and everything. And he was very fit, getting all over the place. I pop up on the wing, he'd pop back and getting the ball off the defence, like I said. And yeah, thankfully, seems fine. The great thing about Bergwall as well is you can always pick him out on the pitch when you're trying to work out, like, is he there? It's like that shock of blonde hair is just noticeable from so far away. Obviously, I'll be seeing it a lot more closer up tomorrow when we get to interview him. Be interesting to see whether he remembers me from going over and seeing him in Stockholm, or he just completely has no, don't know who you are. That would be equally funny. But yeah, it was an interesting friendly. I mean, what did you take away from it, the QPR one? Certainly, Yves Basuma put his hand up to show that he's what he can do, I guess.
Yeah, because we've not seen that real side of his game so far. Because I've seen when he's at Brighton, he scored a couple of goals, and they were really good ones as well. And this was probably one of Spurs' best goals of pre-season so far. Certainly up there, because I mean the ones against Hearts, Brennan Johnson's, and then Jed Spence, they were good team moves, and this was exactly the same. Dane Kulusevski, you know, heavily involved. Really good run from Basuma, gets the ball, and then just calm and composed when he's through on the keeper to round him and find the back of the net. So yeah, I think that will hopefully have given him a bit of a confidence boost in terms of, getting forward and influencing things in the final third. And it was funny what Ange said to him in that post-match interview when Yves was speaking on Spurs play. Ange just walked past him and said it was early pre-season in terms of his goal. It's not that he'll have wanted to count it. But yeah, really good to see Bissouma making impact, and Dane Scarlett finding the back of the net as well, because we mentioned on the last pod that with Will Lancashire coming into the team ahead of, Scarlett and Elahova Lees, and then scoring as well and making an impact in those 20 minutes, that Dane needed to do likewise, because when he's come on recently in those the post-season friendly against Newcastle in Melbourne, he's trying so hard to score. It's just not happening for him, and it was the same against Hearts. Really should have scored with that header, which led to the own goal in the final few minutes. But no, in the right position at the right time to connect with the ball at the far post. And with Spurs under 21s playing in a behind closed door game in Tokyo, you'd imagine Scarlett is going to get a bit of playing time, and that'll only bode well for him going forward in pre-season. And yeah, fingers crossed we see a bit more of him over these coming weeks, because he's someone who quite clearly wants to make an impact at Spurs, and it's just about giving him that chance.
Yeah, Bissouma, going back to him briefly, just did everything that we expect to see of him. He did everything that we saw kind of from him in the first 10 or so games before that red card at Kenilworth Road last season. And it just kind of shows you the fact that that was his first ever goal for Tottenham. He's been at the club now over 2 years, and you kind of think, you've got the ability to do that. Week in, week out, he could drift past players like that. It was just magical, the way he's kind of shifted his body, the way he used his feet. The finish as well was like impudent, going around the keeper. And this was what I would always say about Moussa Dembele, was that I kind of felt like Moussa Dembele was an incredible player, and every player he played with will probably tell you he's the best player they ever played with. But I always felt maybe he didn't get that recognition more widely and globally because he didn't really do anything in the final third. And look, I know there's defensive midfielders out there who are less known for their attacking work, but they still come up with quite big goals from time to time. And I always felt like Dembele that was the little bit for me. And I see it in Bissouma as well, in terms of why are the dribbling skills that you've got not applicable to the final third? Why can you not do that on the edge of the box exactly like he did at Loftus Road, as well as you could do it on the edge of your own box? So, yeah, he needs consistency this season. He missed 11 games last season, either through injury, through the Africa Cup of Nations, and yeah, he needs to be more present for Spurs this season, because I do feel like when he plays well, Spurs often play really well. And likewise, when Spurs are struggling a little bit, sometimes he goes a little bit into his shell as well. And I think he needs it. What is he, 28 years old now, I think? He's got to become one of the inspiring leaders of this group rather than someone that relies on others. And if he can get anywhere close to bringing the consistency and taking those 10 games from last season, there's a big lightning bolt just went right across the sky in front of me. That was very unexpected and distracting. Wow, that went right down. You'll probably hear a rumble of thunder at some point. It will not be in my stomach or anything else. But yeah, he's got everything about him. He's Bissouma. And I think he'll have a little bit of competition for next season as well, and he needs to kind of thrive on that. In terms of others in the friendly that caught my eye, Mikey Moore, another terrific assist. He's just done so well over this pre-season so far. It's fantastic, and that's ensuring he remains heavily involved, which is good, especially with him not having signed the professional deal yet. And yeah, I was just thinking about that. There was this behind closed doors friendly with lightning going on and everything. I wonder if it ends up getting stopped or anything. I'm trying to think. I don't think it's raining. I love this weather report for people that aren't in Tokyo and they're going to hear this hours later. But I was just suddenly crossed my mind. Sometimes when there's lightning, they'll stop a game, won't they? Especially if it gets quite bad. trying to think who else stood out for me. Bergvall was very good. Both keepers made a couple of really good save each as well that came in. It was Brandon Austin and Luca Gunter, wasn't it?
Yeah. Alfie Devine's making an impact as well in pre-season. He's someone who probably has gone under the radar in terms of you've got Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall have moved to the club, Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, Will Lancashire, Tyrese Hall, the young players coming in, they're maybe at the forefront of, some Tottenham fans' mind, and Alfie Devine has maybe, slipped behind in the queue. Because, he spent the past year out on loan, but he had a really strong pre-season last summer. He started really well this year with good performance against Hearts and QPR. I'm just wondering, does he maybe give Ange something to think about before the new season? Because I think we're probably all expecting him maybe to head out and learn. That probably is more beneficial to him. But there could actually be some game time there for him this season in the Carabao Cup and then in the Europa League, because you're going to be having about 12 players on the bench.
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? It's what's best for him, isn't it? My gut tells me probably a loan move again. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you. He's been really kind of promising and I think, it's the loan experience. And that's why we talk about sending him out on loans, because he has looked like a far more senior player than some of the younger players, because, those months at Port Vale and then the months at Plymouth as well. I liked him. And actually, Skippy impressed me the other day as well. He had a really tough task playing out of position at centre-back, but up against quite a physical striker. I think it was Michael Frey, I'm trying to remember, was up front. He was like a big old-school traditional striker, and he had lots of battles with him. And pretty much, he did come out on top because they kept a clean sheet. But yeah, there was a few young players that kind of threw their hat into the ring, and like you say, Dane Scarlett, that was important for him, just to not feel left behind in the whole striker kind of race, as it were. Valise is now the only one who probably hasn't quite hit the mark yet, although he's tried to work hard. Again, you don't really want to look at the score lines. They're not the biggest deal really in pre-season. It's about getting the style of football to the next level, because this is the thing now. It's not just Postecoglou Tottenham. It's got to be Postecoglou Tottenham 2.0 in a way. You've got to take what we saw last season and use that as the foundation and building more tactical details on top. That was what he said. He was very clear on that once you've got the philosophy embedded, then you can go into the real drill into the deeper tactical stuff with it. So far, it's probably only judging it on last pre-season. I think you can see a team that knows more what it's meant to be doing. And it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. In both games, there's been little stretches where the opposition have sat back for periods and they've struggled to break them down. And it'd be interesting to see what kind of threat Vissel Kobe bring them on Saturday, and whether they try to take it to them or whether they equally look to sit back. Either way, Spurs have got to learn how to deal with both scenarios. So, but this was the QPR game was another step along the road.
Yeah. So Tottenham's next friendly is on Saturday against Vissel Kobe of the J League. Busy week coming up, then heading over to South Korea for the games against Team K League. I wonder if Jesse Lingard plays in that. So he's playing in South Korea at the moment.
Has he been very good though? Wasn't all the talk that he hadn't actually been very good? I feel like he was. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like he was getting some criticism from the coach. That might be out of date. That might be a few months back now. But I wonder whether. But what we do know is that Yang Min-hyuk could be. He's certainly in the squad, and that'll be interesting, because technically it's not like, I don't think he's getting loaned back. I think it is very much a deal that will go through in January. In which case, there wouldn't be any kind of thing for Spurs other than a gentleman's agreement that he doesn't play against them. But then kind of, what's the point in that? There's no real kind of use to it, unless obviously something awful, like he accidentally injured Son or something like that. And then it was like, no, kind of be like the worst thing possible. Otherwise, I would imagine you just let him play. It's like it's being on the stage in a way, and seeing how he handles that extra spotlight as well. I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But yeah, and in Bayern after that,
Bayern,
part one.
Yeah, part one, yeah, because they're coming up again a week later at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I don't think Harry Kane's going to be involved in the first one, but you'd imagine he'll be the second one. But Eric Dyer should be coming up against his former club for the first time since his move to the Allianz Arena in January. We'll be back next week. I imagine you'll be joining us from Seoul in South Korea. There will be a lot to talk about, especially after the Vissel Kobe game, and then obviously, of course, what you're getting up to in Japan in terms of the press conferences and player interviews. So, as ever, thank you for listening to the Gold Guest Talk Tottenham podcast. Just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. If you go to nordvpn.com/goldguest, not only does our link give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, but you'll also receive a Saley data voucher. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.